3 spine-chilling true night drive encounters that expose sinister secrets and unexplained horrors. Sarah squeezed the steering wheel of her car, the grip betraying her mounting anxiety. After a grueling 12-hour shift as a nurse, she felt like a husk drained of everything that made her human. The empty suburban streets of Cincinnati loomed ahead, shrouded in midnight silence, amplifying her feeling of being utterly alone. A new notification blinked on her phone, a name that sent dread curling in her gut: her ex-boyfriend, Ethan. His frantic voice echoed in her mind, a melody of panic and despair that reminded her of his last, desperate plead for help. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Suddenly, flickering headlights drew closer in her rearview mirror. They danced like erratic fireflies, too bright, too near. Her heart raced as the shadows along the side of the road twisted and turned, almost sentient in their darkness. Panic surged through her. She recalled Ethan's warning. "Something's out there, Sarah. You need to be careful." Was it his paranoia, or was something stalking her in the comforting disguise of night? The unexpected solitude crept into her mind, and dread clawed at her soul. With a shaky breath, she pulled over to the side of the road, hoping to regain her scattered wits. A dilapidated farmhouse materialized from the haze, its windows aglow with an unnatural light. The sickly luminescence seeped into her very bones, sending a shiver down her spine. Shadows danced inside, like silhouettes of those long gone. Murmurs of local lore whispered in her mind, ghost stories about mysterious disappearances, a cult hidden in plain sight, led by a man with a smile that could lure anyone into madness. Her instincts screamed for her to flee, yet a morbid curiosity pushed her forward. As she stepped out of the car, the wind whispered through the tall grass, sounding eerily like soft voices beckoning her closer. She glanced back at her vehicle, but the headlights had vanished entirely now, swallowed by the consuming gloom. The world narrowed. She felt watched, a lingering awareness that dreadfully insisted she wasn't alone. Before she could shake off the sensation, her phone erupted to life again, lighting up with Ethan's name. Fumbling, she answered, only to hear muffled, incoherent urgencies mixed with a chilling undercurrent. "Sarah, you have to listen, there's something." The line crackled with static and cut off abruptly. Just as the reality of her situation lanced through her, a shadow darted in her peripheral vision, swift and unseen. "No, not now." Panicked, her heart pounded like a war drum. She turned to race back to her car, breathless, as sweat trickled down her forehead. The hollow laugh echoed through the darkness, steady and knowing, a taunting reminder that whatever shadow pursued her was no imagination. Her fingers slipped over the door handle. The night crackled with anticipation, holding its breath, as she realized the true horror. The Sinister might not be of her making, but lingered in the community she thought she knew. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A flash of movement caught her eye again, something whispering, teasing from the edges of her vision. Terror spooled tighter in her stomach as she shoved the door open, heart hammering against her ribs. The chill of the night wrapped around her, blending into spirals of dread that curled around her mind like a noose. As she peered into the depths of the darkness, the shadows hung closer than she dared imagine, ready to reveal secrets that had long been buried. Were the horrors she feared lurking purely outside, or had they already taken root within? The car door slammed shut, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence around her. Sarah's breath quickened as she scanned the area. The desolate farmhouse loomed above her, its windows flickering with that ghostly light that tugged at her senses. It felt alive, a gaping maw that could swallow her whole. She stepped forward cautiously, each footfall echoing in her ears. The whispers in the wind grew louder, taking shape as soft, pleading voices. Were they calling for her, or warning her? The chill gnawed at her skin. Her mind raced back to the stories Ethan had shared, the ones that left his eyes wide with fear. Her pulse quickened. A loud snap echoed behind her. She whipped around, blood rushing in her ears. Her gaze darted through the trees lining the road. Nothing. Just the sway of branches, casting wild shadows that danced. Yet, she felt it again, a presence, lurking just out of sight, pulling her deeper into the night. She turned back to the farmhouse, its sinister glow almost magnetic now. Somehow, a part of her longed to understand what lay within. Through the cracked wooden door, she sensed movement. Not just from inanimate shadows, but figures, huddled silhouettes, wavering and swaying, as if caught in a trance. Fear tickled her spine, tugging her instincts to run, yet curiosity held her in place. "Ethan," she whispered. What did he want to tell her? She needed to know. Gathering her strength, she stepped toward the porch. The wooden boards creaked ominously beneath her feet, their groans sounding warnings as Dawn's past faded away. She hesitated at the top step, her hand hovering over the doorknob. The faint laughter rang out again, high-pitched and echoing through her mind, sending relentless chills skittering down her back. Help us," the phrase slithered through the air, and with it, a palpable pull toward the house, an irresistible urge to open the door and unravel the mystery. Before she could second-guess herself, she twisted the knob. The door swung open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Dark, oppressive air wafted through the opening. The walls appeared to pulse, decorated with strange markings that seemed to move as she looked at them. A relic of horror, perhaps? She stepped inside, the door slamming shut behind her. Echoes of soft laughter surrounded her, impossibly close now, drowning her senses. As her eyes adjusted to the murky light, she spotted them, the figures. They stood gathered in a circle at the room's heart. Ghostly faces turned toward her, expressions of blank entrapment twisted with longing. Were they begging? Their mouths moved, speaking in haunting whispers, yet the words seemed tangled in a web of despair. "Join us," heart pounding, she staggered back. Fear gripped her throat, choking her. She darted toward the door, only to find it sealed shut. Panic flooded in like a tidal wave. The shadows moved closer, clawing for her as they melded together into one encompassing presence. "Sarah!" The cry rang out, Ethan's voice. From where? She searched desperately until, through the heavy shadows, she saw a figure emerge. His face was pale, terror in his eyes, but he too was ensnared by the looming darkness. "Get out. You don't understand." An electric shock of realization shot through her. Whatever held Ethan here was tied to this place. Its sinister tendrils stretched across the night, tangled around their fates. "Leave me," he shouted, his reality fading as an inky shadow enveloped him. Her heart screamed, torn between opening the door and plunging into the unknown. She had to make a choice before the darkness consumed them both. A resolved breath. Was this community truly home, or a facade hiding something much more sinister? She was terrified of the answer and its implications. But before she could act, someone or something grabbed her wrist, the clutch cold and unyielding. "Join us or lose everything." Every fiber in her screamed to resist, yet the terrifying fragility of the moment lingered. As she gasped for breath, she faced the blurred boundary between trust and treachery. What would she do next? The icy grip tightened around Sarah's wrist, a reality shattering her resolve. She jerked her arm, panic rising. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, a dreadful symphony of desperation that pierced her heart. The figures in the circle shifted, their faces morphing into ghastly visages that twisted into smiles filled with malice and longing. "Ethan!" she shouted, straining against the dark force. The shadows that pressed around her seemed to pulse with energy, eager to drown her in their despair. She could see his eyes, wide, reflecting pure terror, a mirror of her own internal chaos. "Sarah, you must go," he shouted again, but it was fading, the words lost among the whispers that crawled between them. "Don't let them." The grip on her wrist felt like ice, clawing into her skin. She could hardly breathe. The spectral figures moved closer, their arms now reaching, grasping for her, fingers elongated and gnarled. They were not just shadows, they were souls caught in agony, trapped within these walls, begging for release in a chorus of dulcet horror. With a surge of adrenaline, she yanked away from the phantom grip. The moment she broke free, the laughter subsided, evaporating into thick silence. But the stillness felt worse than the noise and eerie calm before the storm. She darted towards the door, pounding against the wood with both fists, adrenaline pooling as despair clawed at her chest. It didn't budge. She turned back to the circle. Their eyes were now fixed on her, glimmering with an intensity that sent her heart spiraling into oblivion. "Join us," they whispered in chorus again, a seductive melody entwined with palpable dread. "You can't leave now, no," she screamed, bounding back, desperately searching for an escape. Ethan's face flickered to life behind the cloud of smoke. Agony twisted his features. "Fight it, Sarah. You have to find." The darkness coiled around her, an inescapable blanket that threatened to smother her. Hadn't Ethan told her stories of those who lost their way, of the lost souls consuming anyone who dared venture too close? Had they come to collect their due? Time seemed to slow as she stood frozen between the living and the lost. Should she give in and seek the dark embrace, perhaps finally feeling whole again? Or resist and face the fury of the spirits that would rather see her silenced? "Ethan," she cried again, but her voice wavered, merging with the whispers. The figure's body swayed gently, reaching through the void, merging into shadows that twisted around her legs, igniting a frantic fire of fear. Then, a soft voice broke through the storm. "Follow the light." The breeze stirred, carrying ethereal warmth toward her. A faint glimmer pierced the shadowy mist, the outline of a distant door barely visible. Could it be freedom? Hope blossomed wildly in her chest, but the dreams of escape sank to the pit of despair as the figures tightened their grip. "Sarah, run." Ethan's voice grounded her, but filled her with dread. She had to decide: stay and potentially lose herself to the whispers, or trust the pulse of the light that gnawed at the edges of her vision. Could the glimmer truly guide her out of this nightmare? Trembling, she took a step toward the light. But as quickly as it appeared, the darkness surged, filling every crevice, pouring into her thoughts. "Stay, join us," they sang out, their voices blending in a haunting harmony. The light flickered, pulsating as the shadows expanded, pulling her back. "Ethan," she screamed, a raw edge of fear vibrating in her chest. The door seemed to close, the distance stretching impossibly far. Would she ever reach it? Would it swallow her into the void or lead her to salvation? The battle raged within her as she stumbled forward, but the shadows surged once more, merging into one mass, forming a shape that drew closer, menacing and monstrous. Time is running out. What would Sarah choose to save herself, and at what cost? Would she surrender, or grapple with the demons for a chance at life? The weight of the decision loomed, heavy like a storm cloud ready to burst. Just then, a sudden crash echoed behind her. The door rattled violently, just as a figure, tall and obscured, burst into the room. "Don't let them take you." But who was it? Was it friend or foe? The darkness stirred in anticipation. What would Sarah find next? The figure loomed, a shadow against the shifting darkness. As it stepped closer, details sharpened: a wild mop of hair, a familiar outline. It was Oliver, Ethan's older brother, but why was he here? Panic clouded Sarah's judgment. He looked disheveled, eyes wide with fear, breathless as though he had sprinted through hell itself. "Sarah, you need to listen to me," he shouted, his voice slicing through the murky air. He glanced back as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "We don't have much time." The spectral forms shifted uneasily, their shrieks rising in discord. It seemed they recognized him, and the atmosphere thickened with anticipation, an ominous shiver coursing through Sarah's spine. "Oliver?" she said hesitantly, confusion mingling with dread. "What are you doing here?" "I came to find you," he said, stepping further into the room, but the phantoms hissed at his presence. "You can't give in to them. They want you." The claws of the shadows scrambled toward him, hungry to wrap around flesh. They decreased the distance, their grins widening, a grotesque parody of glee. "Run, Sarah. You need to run now," Oliver urged, but his voice wobbled as he faced the gathering darkness. She tore her eyes away from the swirling chaos and looked towards the faint light beyond the door. It grew brighter with each racing second, a beacon calling to her, urging her to escape. But how could she leave without Oliver? "Get out. I'll hold them back," he shouted desperately, a fire igniting in his eyes. "No." Panic surged within her. "I'm not leaving you." The phantoms moved between her and the door, wailing and clawing, their whispers growing louder, more insistent. "You belong to us. Join us." They sang, voices laced with seduction. In that moment, Sarah felt the rope of her sanity begin to fray. Oliver's presence became a lifeline, grounding her, but the darkness could unravel everything. She shook her head, trying to think, trying to find a reason amidst the chaos. There's got to be another way. But before she could form a plan, the silhouettes drew closer, translucent bodies twisting and turning, their cries sharpening into sharp blades of despair. They lunged for Oliver, fingers snapping at him, drawn to his very essence. "Go, now," he roared, but his voice was losing strength, blending into the horrid symphony of souls. Suddenly, the door behind her shuddered violently, and an unseen pressure crashed against her, forcing her backwards. The light flickered, dimming as coldness seeped under her skin, whispering her name like a lover's caress, a bitter promise of surrender. "Sarah!" Oliver cried, fighting back as the darkness wrapped around him, pulling him towards their gaping maw. Tears stung Sarah's eyes. She needed to act, to choose, but fear collapsed her willpower. Would fleeing mean she condemned him to the same fate as those lost souls? Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage, each beat an echo of fear, desperation, and uncertainty. "Ethan!" she screamed, the name a plea, a lifeline, a prayer to the depths of despair, but there was no response. With horror clawing at her throat, she looked back over her shoulder at the glowing light. It seemed to pulse, shimmering, alive. The whispers continued, a relentless tide of shadows threatening to drown out Oliver's cries. "Stay with us," they cooed. "Fight it, Sarah!" Oliver shouted, terror twisting his features as he struggled against the shadows. "You have to trust yourself." Would she trust the light or the brother fighting to keep her safe? Time was fading like the vanishing warmth of twilight as the shadows pressed forth. Suddenly, a bone-chilling scream reverberated through the air, and the room trembled. "What will you do?" The question danced in the thick tension, an invitation and an ultimatum intertwined. As Sarah stood at the crossroads of dread and hope, shadows reaching for her soul, she breathed deeply, feeling the weight of every choice. Was she brave enough to break away from the darkness, or would she succumb to the terrible urge to join them? And just when she thought she might choose, a sudden snarl erupted from the depths of the shadows, the sound crashing into all options. "Don't let them." Oliver's warning cut off, swallowed by the strange force that loomed. Terror flooded Sarah's veins as she grabbed the door handle, every inch of her fighting to hold on to reality. But what lay behind that door? Was it a way out, or another trap into the waiting void? With the din of screams echoing in her mind and her heart hammering in her chest, she hesitated, and a voice whispered from behind her, "They are coming for you." What would she decide in that fleeting moment of terror? The door felt slick beneath Sarah's fingertips, a layer of sweat mingling with the blood from her racing heart that drummed against her ribcage. Shadows coiled around her ankles, almost playful but malevolent, their tendrils like the creeping fingers of a nightmare. Every second slithered by, stretching out into a torment of indecision, each heartbeat echoing Oliver's cries. "Sarah, please." Oliver's voice pierced through her confusion, filled with urgency. He was losing ground, the dark mass enveloping him like a shroud, clawing and gnashing. Despair churned in her stomach. How could she choose between the brother she loved and the uncertain light? "Run." His voice cracked, all strength fading. The phantoms seemed to relish his weakening spirit, their dance around him growing more chaotic, more fervent. And then, accompanied by a sickening pop, something inside her broke. She yanked the door open, and blinding light exploded into existence. It bathed her in warmth, shifting shadows into the corners of her mind like debris swept away by a storm. This was what she needed, a way out. Without thinking, she leapt, propelled by a hope she hadn't dared to nurture. But the moment she crossed the threshold, a weight pinned her down. Cold stole her breath, the screams of the shadows muted yet reverberating in the back of her mind. She whipped around, nearly falling as the door slammed shut behind her with a resounding thud. Panic clawed at her throat. "Oliver!" she cried as the din behind her faded, but her brother was gone. Only the horrifying silence remained, punctuated by distant echoes of the phantom's howls. Still trembling, she took a shaky step backward, half expecting the world to shatter and the shadows to return. But the space around her flickered, shimmering and dissolving into an unsettling ambiguity. Now standing in what appeared to be a vast, hallucinogenic corridor that went on forever, walls pulsing with muted colors, she felt as though she were entangled in a bad dream. With every heartbeat resonating in her ears, Sarah pressed a hand against the wall, hoping to anchor herself. Out of the corner of her eye, upright figures jerked into view, faces appearing in the reflections of not only her surroundings, but the very fabric of her mind. They were distorted, their eyes wide with what could only be described as a mix of ecstasy and agony. "Help us," they whispered in hollow tones, weaving through the corridor like smoke. "Join us," desperation gripped her, tugging her back toward that demonic melody. Was this what the lights had meant? Was Oliver trapped somewhere in this despondent realm, caught between life and death? "No," she shouted, shaking her head, fighting against their luring rasp. Breathless, she darted down the corridor, feet pounding against a pulsating floor that felt strangely alive, wanting to drink her fear. With each step, her resolve tightened. She had to find Oliver. But as she ran, more faces emerged, friends, family, all twisted in agonized smiles, their mouths open but no words escaping. Each pass felt like a tightening vice around her heart. Skittering feet and raspy whispers echoed off the walls, growing louder. "They come for you," a voice growled, echoing within her mind. "You can't escape." As she pressed on, Sarah's thoughts were muddled with fear and the memories of those she loved. The corridor began to distort further, walls bending, pulling her toward a dark vortex at the end, shadows swirling hungrily around its boundaries like crashing waves. A clarity surged through her like the jolt of electricity. This was a test. To reclaim her brother, she had to face it. She could break free, but she needed to focus. If the whispers wanted her, she would not be taken so easily. Then, a flicker of movement in the dark entrance caught her attention. A figure, tall and cloaked, it loomed, a grotesque distortion of Oliver's form. Sarah's breath hitched as chills radiated down her spine. "Sarah," it crooned, voice dripping with darkness. "Come closer." Was it him? Or just another trap? With every ounce of defiance, she stilled her rumbling heart. The shadows drifted closer, their tendrils eager, searching for her weakness. "Now or never," she muttered under her breath, steadying her legs. With one final glance at the swirling shadows seeking to consume her, she surged forward. As she neared the figure, it shimmered, revealing not only Oliver's face but a reflection of her deepest fears and regrets entwined, blurring the line between reality and illusion. "Can you really trust me?" it whispered. And just as she reached out to touch the figure, the ground beneath her trembled violently, fissures splitting open. The corridor imploded into darkness, shadows screeching as they were swallowed whole, leaving Sarah in a void of silence. The last thing she heard was the mocking echo of her own voice whispering in the distance, "You shouldn't have come." Was this what it meant to confront the shadows? Would she realize the truth before the darkness drew her in once and for all? In the suffocating blackness, her breath hitched, and uncertainty slithered back in. What horrors still awaited her in the depths of fear? The silence was thick, suffocating, almost as if the dark itself was holding its breath. Sarah's heart pounded, each thump echoing like a drum in the oppressive void. She was surrounded by nothingness, and yet it felt alive and hungry. The whisper of her own voice haunted her, a taunt lingering like smoke in the air. "You shouldn't have come." As she steadied herself, trying to gather her fraying nerves, she felt a sudden shift. The ground beneath her began to tremble again, shifting like a restless sea. Panicked, she glanced around, her eyes straining to pierce the thick darkness. Was something watching her? Then she noticed a faint glimmer in the distance, like a star fighting through the night sky. She took a cautious step forward, drawn to the light, its warmth beckoning her closer. Each step brought a mixture of relief and dread. She hoped it led to a way out, but that slithering sense of despair reminded her that this place thrived on her fear. "Oliver," she called out, her voice a tentative thread in the void. The light flickered in response, teasing her, almost mocking. It became brighter, and with it, shadows carved out shapes from the darkness, spindly figures that twisted and contorted, their movements frantic and erratic. "Join us," the words whispered from every direction, thickening the air around her. Faces emerged again, familiar yet grotesque, stretching in agony and ecstasy, merging into one blurring mass of despair. They reached out, pleading, their hands grasping for Sarah like claws snatching at her soul. "Leave me alone," she cried, her voice cracking. But their cries clawed at her heart, and with each step toward the light, she felt their despair seep into her own chest, pulling her down. "Stop resisting," the voices clamored, a cacophony rising and falling, swelling her chest with panic. They wanted her. They wanted all of her. With rising fury, she pulled her trembling hands to her ears, blocking out their noises. There had to be a way. She pressed on, each stride fueled by wild desperation. The light glimmered, growing clearer, and for every step towards it, the shadows seemed to recoil, angry and restless. Suddenly, the corridor morphed. The colors shifted kaleidoscopically, swirling vivid hues that made her stomach churn. The pulsating walls began to close in, squeezing her tighter. The sensation of being watched became overwhelming. It was as if eyes were boring into her from every angle, judging her choices. "Sarah," a deep voice called, echoing through the chaos. Her heart dropped. The voice was unmistakable. It was Oliver. But why did it sound so thick with sorrow? The shadows seemed to relish her hesitation, closing in once more. "Please, it's a trap. Don't listen," she shouted, her voice fierce against the dark. "Come to me," the voice urged, thick like syrup, wrapping around her heart, tugging her. "I'm waiting. Come back." "I cannot," she screamed, her mind swirling with conflict. Images of their childhood, of laughter and warmth, of protecting him when the world grew dark lingered in her thoughts. Was this a true return, or merely another illusion? Tension coiled in her chest as she approached the source of the light, each step fraught with doubt. What if it wasn't him? What if she failed him again? "No," she yelled at the darkness, her voice fierce. "You will not take me again." But there, in the brightness, Oliver's face emerged, eyes wide but sunken, stretching into a pained smile. She reached out, but shadows swirled violently around her, greedily clawing for her feet, trying to drag her back into despair. "You cannot save him," a slithering voice hissed. It crawled into her ears, filling her mind with doubt, spinning a web of fear around her. And when she reached for the light, everything around her shattered into fragments of glass. The corridor exploded, colors blending and crashing, darkness erupting from the cracks. She felt herself plummeting, falling into a swirling pit of despair. "Sarah," Oliver's voice came again, thin and desperate, stretching across the chasms of the dark. This time, she clutched tightly to hope, grit igniting in her gut. She wouldn't let the shadows claim her. With another fierce cry, she pushed herself into the blinding light. But just as the warmth enveloped her, a final whisper threaded through her mind. Remember, this was your choice. Would she be strong enough to face what came next? Or would the shadows rise again, stronger than before, consuming her whole? The moment Sarah broke through the blinding light, she was met with chilling stillness. It engulfed her like icy water, drenching her in an extraterrestrial calm that felt too surreal. She blinked, her eyes adjusting slowly, taking in the eerie stillness of her surroundings. Where was she? The vivid colors had faded, replaced by a muted gray landscape, devoid of life and shadow. She stood atop a desolate road, cracked and uneven underfoot, stretching endlessly into the murky distance. The only sounds were the faint rustle of wind and the echo of her rapid breaths. Then she heard a low growl resonating from the depths of the dim landscape, an ominous warning. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribcage, the fear wrapping around her throat like a vice. She scanned her surroundings, searching for the source, yet there was nothing, only that sound, growing louder and more feral with each passing second. "Oliver?" she whispered, a tremor in her voice. Silence responded, pressing down hard on her chest. She was utterly alone. The realization struck her again. Oliver was still out there, likely at the mercy of whatever malevolent presence had haunted her steps. The urge to call for him urged her forward, but the growl deepened, echoing like a heartbeat, sending jolts of anxiety coursing through her veins. With every step, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her, swaying as though alive. She clutched her arms, trying to stifle the mounting dread. "Stay calm, just keep walking," she murmured, her voice quiet against the rising noise. But as she ventured forth, flickers of shadow danced at the edges of her vision. They teased at her sanity, darting just beyond her line of sight snippets of what once was. The faces twisted in agony haunted her, familiar yet twisted into grotesque parodies filled with despair. She stumbled, encased in a parching sense of loss, and gasped as the shadows grew near, whispering venomous words that coiled around her thoughts. "Come play with us," then a sharp, stinging pain shot through her shoulder. She spun around, fists clenched, only to find a delicate flower, sinister and beautiful, its petals glistening with a wet sheen blood, perhaps. But before she could scrutinize it further, it shifted before her eyes, reshaping itself into a vision of a grinning Oliver, his face smeared with that very blood. "Why are you hiding from me?" The illusion taunted, sound dripping with mockery, the voice a distorted echo of his. Her breath hitched, ice flaring in her chest. "I'm not hiding," she protested, a part of her wanting to reach for him, while another fought against the invasive sensations clinging to her skin. "Then come back," he hissed, the smile widening, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too cruel. "No," she shouted, shaking her head violently, trying to dispel it. "You're not him." But the laughter that followed felt familiar, resonating deep within her, taunting her past, reminding her of moments where laughter echoed in warm rooms. It surged with a haunting sweetness, crushing her defenses. Why was every memory twisted in this place? Behind her, the growl became a low roar, and Sarah turned just in time to see a massive figure emerging from the shadows. It was colossal, its features more beast than human, mouth draped with dripping fangs, eyes gleaming like molten rock, nearly piercing through her very essence. There was nowhere to run. "Sarah," it growled, the name twisted into something vile. "Join us." The light began to dim, absorbing her breath, the weight of despair crashing against her will. Would she become another face in the shadows? No, she screamed fiercely, but it came out as a whisper, the anger snuffed out by terror. Stumbling backward, she felt the edge of the road give way, swallowed into the yawning darkness that loomed behind her. "Sarah!" The voice cried once more, a strange mix of urgency and sorrow. She searched desperately for the light, for Oliver. Was he in there? A flicker of courage ignited within her. But as the beast lunged, the shadows thickened, clawing at Sarah's resolve. "Will this be your end?" The darkness pressed in, and with one last glimpse of that distorted smile, she felt herself being pulled into the abyss. Then came the echoing question that sent chills through the depths of her being. "Do you really know who you are?" With that, the world blurred into nothingness. What awaited her in the shadows? The answer slithered unbidden, wrapped in fear and longing. Floating in the void, Sarah grappled with the unbearable pressure wrapping around her, squeezing out her last gasps of air. She sensed time reeling, the seconds stretching eternally as her thoughts swirled in a tempest of dread. She desperately wanted to scream, but the suffocating absence of sound left her voiceless. Where had that monstrous figure gone? The solid ground? Moments turned into a fog. With a sudden jolt, she landed hard against a damp surface. She opened her eyes, bewildered, only to find herself ensnared in a corridor lined with mirrors, each reflecting her gaunt face, pale, frightened, haunted. The reflections roared back at her, grinning mockeries of her fate. The crawling dread inched closer, wrapping its fingers around her spine. Then, in the center of this mirrored prison, the familiar silhouette spun into view. It was Oliver, or the shadow of him, at least. A facsimile, twisted into a nightmare, his form flickering like a charged ember. "Sarah," he crooned, a low whisper haunting the air, "don't you see? Every mirror holds a truth, but some truths are best left shattered." "Oliver," she cried, reaching out, but her hand met glass, cold and solid. Fear ignited her instincts. "Where are you? What is this place?" The hint of a smirk stretched across his lips. "You're in a realm between worlds, a liminal space filled with what you've lost and what you fear." His voice turned gravelly, a growl echoing through the corridors. "You must confront them, Sarah. They are waiting." The walls writhed, shadows flickering in the periphery, whispering her name. Cold sweat bead along her brow as the shadows morphed into figures, faces she recognized twisted in agony. Friends, family, even strangers. Their pitiful eyes, empty and pleading, clawed into her core. "Help us, Sarah," they echoed, their voices melding into one dissonant choir. "It's your fault." "No, I didn't mean to," she gasped, throwing herself against the glass, desperate to escape their accusing stares. "Do you know who you are?" the chorus sang, relentless. And then, she saw herself an isolated child, a guilty teen, a woman on the brink. Each fragment of her past shattered within the mirrors until one dark corner began to glow, revealing a hidden truth. In that corner stood a door, pulsing with inviting warmth. Hope tried to bloom, but its petals were licked by a fear lurking close behind. Shadows hissed at her. "Don't trust it," they warned, their voices curling like smoke. She turned towards Oliver, whose features distorted, the kindness turning to malice. "Are you going to run away again? Will you hide like you always did?" A surge of panic gripped her heart. Was she hiding? The thought spun wildly. She hadn't faced what haunted her. Behind the door lay an unspeakable truth she had skirted her whole life. Taking a shuddering breath, she glanced back at the figures, each person moist with regret, with histories that intersected her own. "I will not let you dictate my choices," Sarah shouted, determination fueling her resolve. With one last glance at the grasping shadows, she sprinted towards the door, heart racing louder than her footsteps. Then, just as her hand wrapped around the frigid handle, the world spun again. The shadows converged, inches from her, fingers intertwining into a sinister web, holding her back. The desperate cries clamored around her. Panic gripped her throat. "Sarah, don't go." She hesitated, breath catching. Should she confront the pain? What awaited her beyond? As she pushed against the unrelenting darkness, a colossal roar filled the air, and the memories swirled faster, blurring around her. With a final cry, Sarah threw the door open, plunging into the unknown. What awaited on the other side? Her heart raced in anticipation, a new horror or a sickening familiarity. "Will you survive your truth?" whispered a voice laced with malice as the darkness snatched her inside. Suddenly, Sarah found herself on a paved road, the distant glow of streetlights flickering like dying stars. The air was thick with tension, an oppressive darkness blanketing the trees on either side. The ground pulsed beneath her feet, each heartbeat resonating as if the earth itself were alive, waiting. Her surroundings felt distorted and dreamlike. The asphalt shimmered, like a mirage, bending reality at the edges. Was she on a road back to the world she knew or descending deeper into a nightmare? Panic flickered within her chest. The echoes of the accusing voices lingered, clinging to her thoughts like cobwebs. "Sarah, you left us," whispers rose from the depths of the surrounding woods, rising and falling like the tide. Each one pierced her soul, dragging her down into a spiral of guilt. She clenched her teeth, forcing her feet forward despite the unmistakable pull of despair. Ahead, the road stretched endlessly, vanishing into a darkness that seemed to breathe, expelling a chilling fog that curled around her ankles, drawing her in closer to its abyss. She turned back, hoping for escape. Yet, behind her lay the corridor of mirrors, still flickering with that distorted reflection of Oliver, whose smile now twisted to a grotesque grimace. "Run, Sarah," he had called, but why? Fear surged in her heart. What was she running from? What was chasing her? A low growl emanated from the shadows. Something was out there, prowling, waiting for the moment she would falter. Her pulse quickened as she pressed on, each step fueled by a mix of dread and a desperate need to know. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night, echoing from the surrounding woods, an inhumane cry that rattled the air. It was a sound laced with despair, with anger, reverberating against the twisted trees. The air thickened. She felt as if the very world was collapsing around her. "Sarah!" A familiar voice rang out, her sister Anna. She was out there, lost in this nightmare. Sarah's chest tightened. "Help!" came the voice again, but this time carrying a bitter edge, layered with something far more sinister. Without thinking, Sarah sprinted toward the sound, her heart hammering against her ribcage. As she ran, the shadows grew denser, clawing at her legs, tugging with an icy grip. "No!" she shouted, fighting against their pull, darkness trying to drag her back into the void. Then, she stumbled upon a clearing, illuminated by a spectral light that emanated from a figure standing at its center. Anna, or what she thought was Anna, stood with her back turned, her hair caught by a soft breeze. Sarah, join me, the apparition beckoned, but something deep within screamed at her to turn back. Anna, she exclaimed, her voice echoing in the stillness, a mix of hope and dread. What is happening? Where are you? The figure slowly turned. What Sarah saw chilled her to the bone. Anna's face was warped, her eyes shimmering with a haunted light, reflecting all the pain and fear Sarah had tried to escape. You left me, she said, her voice a twisted mirage of warmth, laced with betrayal. Anna, no, you have to fight. You're not, but the words fumbled in her throat, a realization dawning on her. The truth lurked beneath the surface, lurking in the shadows, threatening to pull her under. A shadow lunged from the darkness behind Anna, a hulking mass brimming with fury. It loomed closer, terror curling at the edges of Sarah's vision. You did this, it bellowed, venom dripping from its voice, echoing the words of the figures in the mirrors. Desperation surged in Sarah as she lunged toward her sister, instinct swelling within her. Get away from her, she screamed. But as she reached for Anna, the world shifted. The fog thickened, veiling the clearing, blurring the edges of Anna's twisted visage. Hope was slipping through her fingers. Will you wake up, or will you drown in the horror of your own making? Came the low whisper. Was this a choice, or a cruel illusion of freedom? Her heart pounded in her ears. What lay beneath her sister's gaze that she had yet to confront? As the shadows closed in, Sarah felt the chilling grip of fear wrapping around her once more. Choose, Sarah, the horrifying voice beckoned. And before she could make sense of it all, the ground beneath her fell away, dragging her deeper into the darkness. What truth awaited her in the depths below? Sarah felt herself tumbling down, the void swallowing her whole. Desperation clawed at her as she fell through the depths of darkness. Time held no meaning in this abyss, each second dragging on like an eternity. The echoes of her sister's voice, mingled with the sorrowful wails of the lost souls, reverberated in her mind. Help us, you left us. The shrillness cut deep, awakening something deep inside her. But with every cry, the shadows pulled tighter, constricting around her like a snake ready to strike. Suddenly, she hit the ground hard. The impact jolted through her, waking her senses to a dimly lit basement. She blinked rapidly as her eyes adjusted to the harsh glow from a flickering bulb above. The air was thick with a musty smell, overwhelming her with a chill as she scrambled to her feet. Before her stood an imposing wall covered in mirrors, each reflecting a dynamic tension that coiled around her soul. Confront your truth, Sarah, a voice echoed softly, so familiar yet haunting. A reflection emerged from the mirrors, taking the shape of her childhood self, eyes wide with innocence and fear. Why did you leave us? The young Sarah asked, the reflection shimmering with anguish. I didn't mean to, Sarah cried back, the wall of mirrors trembling with her desperation. Then face the darkness of your choices, the voice insisted, weaving into an imploring echo, intertwining a web of guilt that ensnared Sarah's heart. She stepped closer to the mirrors, the memories flooding back moments where she had turned away, where she had chosen comfort instead of confronting her fears. Anna's haunting face hovered on the glass, distorted with sorrow. Behind her, shadows lurked, shifting and swirling, urging her to retreat. Fear curled in her stomach, but within the confines of this reality, there was a flicker of bravery igniting inside her. Enough, she shouted, her voice firm now, grounding. I will not let fear dictate my actions. As if spurred by her defiance, the mirrors shimmered ominously, showing flashes of pain. The faces within twisted, pleading for release. Each echo twisted deeper, morphing into a chorus. You are the architect of their suffering, they screamed in unison. No, this isn't me. I am more than my mistakes. A shadow lunged from the darkness, seeming to manifest in the swirling reflections. It howled an amalgamation of every regret and doubt she buried. You cannot escape your past, Sarah. But in that moment, the glow of the flickering bulb cast a radiant light across her path. She closed her eyes, taking a shuddering breath and firming her resolve. This was at the point where she would either fall or rise. No more hiding. I choose to break these chains. She hurled herself toward the nearest mirror, and with a shattering crash, she leapt through. The shards exploded into a cascade of light. As the darkness attempted to reach her, she felt herself pulled forward, breaking free from despair's grasp. A new world unfolded, a vivid landscape bathed in light, colors blooming vibrantly around her. She emerged in a sunlit meadow, lush grasses swaying as a gentle breeze danced around her. The burdens of the shadows, the anguished faces, the frozen memories began to dissolve, and warmth enveloped her like a long-lost embrace. Then she saw him, standing at the far edge of the meadow. Oliver. "Sarah?" His voice, once filled with desperation, now rang with understanding and hope. She raced into his arms, relief flooding her senses as he held her tightly. "I thought I lost you," he murmured, holding her close. "We can't go back, Oliver," she whispered, her heart pounding in rhythm with the truth blossoming within. "We can't let fear control us anymore." "I know," he replied, stepping back to look into her eyes. "We face it together." Hand in hand, they turned back to the meadow, and as they walked through the vibrant light, the shadows melted away behind them, whispers of despair fading into the wind. And with each step, they reclaimed their stories woven with love and resilience, threads of hope pulling them closer to their true selves. Finally free, Sarah turned toward the horizon, where the sun broke through, casting golden rays across their path. "No more running," she vowed, linking their fingers tightly. "We will be the light." As they walked into their new life, they left the darkness behind, a relentless reminder that the true strength lay in facing their fears rather than running from them. Now, as a final call to action, listen up. If you love this story and want to dive into more gripping tales, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm gods. I want to hear from you too. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. And don't delay, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support, and trust me, only true fans understand the importance of backing the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second.